In 2014, a record number of rhinos were illegally slaughtered in South Africa's Kruger Park. Now on BBC News, Our World sets out to discover whether hunting the poachers can save the rhino.
Rhino horn is the world's most expensive commodity. Demand from Asia, where it's falsely believed to cure cancer, has made it worth more than diamonds and gold. Last year, rhino poaching reached record levels in South Africa.
So it looks like I shot it from the side. It came from behind this bush.
Many of the poachers come across the border from impoverished Mozambique.
You have to shoot the animal and kill it. Once you're sure it's dead, you cut the horn off and move on.
But South Africa is fighting back, sometimes with deadly force.
People come into our country illegally. They're armed. They plunder our resources. If you try to arrest them, they try and kill you. That's tantamount to war.
I've come to southern Africa to find out what's behind the slaughter of the rhinoceros and what it will take to stop this bloody trade. Out in the South African bush in Limpopo province, I've come to watch a rhino being shot. In the gun is a drug so strong, just 2 drops will kill a man. So the vets just started the rhino that they're going to do the operation on, and we're just waiting here for the tranquilizer to take effect. A year ago, it was poachers who were hunting this rhino.
Keep the eyes closed all the time so that she's calm, that the sun doesn't damage the eyes if there is.
Now, these extraordinary vets are performing pioneering facial reconstruction surgery.
See, this hole initially was about, keep an eye on that breathing here. This hole was initially about this big here, guys. So it's come down from that size to this little bit now. It's just this last little bit that's been worrying us. Yeah, these tourists were out on an early morning drive, and all of a sudden these 2 cows came out of the bush with, and they just had no horns, and half their faces they had these huge holes in the front of their heads. It was bizarre. I mean, when they called me, I didn't believe it.
It's incredible being this close to a rhino. But to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous because the other rhino is just over there looking on. But what's really amazing is that she's still alive. Poachers took off her horn and part of her face with a chainsaw. Just brutal. Last year, over 1,200 rhinos were slaughtered in this part of Africa.
This is the backbone, so the rhino.
Although this rhino survived, there was still a casualty. She was pregnant when attacked and lost her baby.
Of your adult rhinos, probably half of them were pregnant. So the 1,200 can probably be, you could probably add another 400 to it, Also, that 1,200 is the 1,200 that we know about. There are probably many, many more that still haven't been found yet.
It's hard work moving a 2-ton rhino, and it's very expensive to rehabilitate them. But it's easy and profitable for a poacher to wreak his havoc.
Well done, guys. For the first time last year, the number of animals that were shot or poached have outnumbered those who were born. It's literally a war out there.
Reconstructive surgery is largely trial and error. No one has ever done this before, or indeed knows if it will work. But using dental materials, to heal their wounds may well save the lives of a few precious rhinos. Amid all the relief at the success of the operation, it's easy to forget there is a wild animal here.
The antidote is in.
Right, so how long before that might
Okay,
take
so she's
effect?
going to get up any minute from now.
Okay.
So I think if you
so
can get
we
to the
should
vehicle. Yeah.
back off.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
For this rhinoceros, called Lion Den, it's a small step on the long road to recovery. South Africa's Greater Kruger area shares a 360-kilometre border with Mozambique. Travelling along this vast expanse of bush, you witness a land where animals are free to roam. Most of the world's white rhino live in this area, the majority of them inside the Kruger National Park. I've come to meet the man in charge of stopping the slaughter of the rhinoceros, Major General Johan Jooste, the head of Kruger Park's anti-poaching unit.
Kruger Park has a dark side. This wonderful place that you see here, this wonderful iconic park, has a dark side, which is caused by poachers, primarily from our neighboring state Mozambique, but also from the South African side. Poachers who kill in a savage and brutal way to satisfy a market for the horn.
Oh, your helicopters are through here? Kruger Park is the size of Wales. Protecting it can bring rangers into combat with armed poachers.
60 to 70% anti-poaching.
Although no rangers in the park have died, an increasing number of poachers are being killed.
The average poacher is between 25 and 35 years old. Male, unemployed and poor. Some of them become greedy. The initial drive is poverty, but some of them become greedy and become repeat poachers. They know no law, they have no conscience, they abide to no rules. In some little villages, specifically in Mozambique, whole little villages has been criminalized. The only law they know is the law of the poacher lord.
But policing an area of 19,000 square kilometres does have some attractions. You get a front row seat in one of the most spectacular wildlife shows imaginable.
We're flying over the famous Kruger National Park. These are the crown jewels of South Africa. People from all over the world come here to see the wildlife. It's got the world's biggest population of rhinos, which makes it the #1 target for poachers.
But suddenly, the mood changes. The crew have spotted a rhino carcass from the air. We set off to see what's been left by the lions and vultures.
Already smell putrefying flesh. It's really strong. And there he is, in the ditch.
You can see how cleanly the horn's been taken off. See that?
Yeah.
Very cleanly with a knife. This person knows exactly what he's doing. Normally they're chop marks or axe marks, even panga marks. So it indicates he's done this very often. He's very well experienced. You see there's a bullet hole.
Right.
So it looks like they shot it from the side. It came from behind this bush. And they shot it while it was in this wallow here.
The discarded remains of this rhinoceros are nothing more than the waste product of an industry worth $19 billion a year.
This is organized crime, the fourth biggest international crime in the world, illicit wildlife trade. And for now, the most popular commodity is rhino horn. Rhino horn is right now the most expensive commodity gram for gram on the planet, and it walks in the bush here.
The threat from organized crime is so great that stopping poaching in the greater Kruger area has become an industry with a thriving private sector. These recruits have just gone through 5 weeks of military training in order to qualify as rangers for hire on private estates. But surprisingly, the owner of this security firm has mixed feelings about what these recruits will have to do in their new work.
We're teaching our guys to protect themselves, which unfortunately means we're teaching them to use a semi-automatic weapon which potentially can kill a person. Every time we do shoot a poacher, we turn an entire community against conservation. You are taking that Robin Hood scenario, you're shooting somebody that was stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, all right, and they hate conservation because it's viewed as a rich white man's thing.
Why do you say that there's a racial divide when it comes to conservation?
There is, because white people own the land that the wildlife sits on. Black people own nothing. Go find out one black man that owns a rhino. Go find a black man that owns a farm. Can't find him. Remember, these two people that have entered in, it could be farm workers, just taking a shortcut to a compound.
One of Vincent's star employees is Tumi Morema.
Okay, you've got that Eastgate Road.
In 8 years at the company, Tumi has caught more poachers than anyone else. And he now runs one of ProTrack's anti-poaching operations at a private reserve in the greater Kruger area.
In the mornings, we check all the fences, check the boundaries, see if there is no spoor coming in or out.
This the fresh tracks. Looks like barefoot, you know.
We go find the rhino spoor, track it. Sometimes we find them and sit with them, just stay with them, just watch them. The guys we caught that side at the bottom.
Yeah.
They used this route.
Yeah.
Let's just check it out and see. What was that?
Being a ranger lets Tumi indulge a love of wildlife that might otherwise be denied. He offers a more complex view of the reason for poaching, rather than simple greed and poverty.
Many years ago, they want fences and stuff. And then now there came white people. They put fences and now they own the animals. It's my farm, it's my animals, and black people feel the access to the world has been taken away from us. That's the main problem, that's the biggest problem. That's what causes poaching.
Although Tumi understands the causes of poaching, saving the rhino is his priority.
Why is here? Check, that's a hippo. Rhino's one is more like it, but doesn't you see a hippo has got like toes, like it. This soldier I am now is the soldier I want to be. I feel like I'm fighting for real, for something which can't fight for itself, can't defend itself. It's a war. You want to bring it, bring it. I'll fight.
I wanted to meet the other army in this war. Not the shady criminals who traffic the horn, but the foot soldiers prepared to risk their lives to kill a rhino. Traveling into Mozambique, I'm entering a country with no rhino of its own. They were wiped out in 2 waves, first by European settlers then in the chaos of the civil war. Today, Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world. Over half its citizens live on less than $1 a day. Many are forced to cross the border for work into its richer neighbor, South Africa.
I'd been to see my father, who was ill in Maputo. When I got home, I learned that my son had gone to South Africa. He'd gone there with some friends to poach rhino in Kruger National Park.
Jeremiah has lived with his family in this desolate area on Mozambique's border with Kruger Park since the end of his country's civil war. But 4 months ago, his world was turned upside down.
3 days later, I heard that someone in the group had died. I rang around to find out who it was. One of his friends told me that the dead person was my son, Sebastião.
Sebastião was just 25 when his life was ended with a bullet fired by the South African police.
He was shot. He was in a group, but when he saw the police, he stood up and started running away. He was holding a machete, and the police thought it was a gun. So they shot him. He fell and died on the spot.
For a young man in rural Mozambique, the prospects are not good. But what drove his son Sebastião to risk his life?
He was influenced by friends. There's a group of them here, all his age. When he saw that his friends had money, had cars, and lots of stuff, he wanted to join them. I said, "Don't go anywhere, my son." But when I went to Maputo, he took off with his friends.
Kruger Park, with its promise of riches, lies just across the river. For many, the temptation proves just too much. Anyone around here with a car or brick home has made their money from rhino poaching. Sebastião has left behind 2 wives and 2 children. For his widows in this poor rural community, a future without a breadwinner is clearly troubling.
After the first trip, he brought back money and built us this house. But when he went for the second time, he was killed.
He said he was going to South Africa to kill rhinos for horns. I told him not to go, but he said, "I have no job here in Mozambique."
He was the only breadwinner of the family. So I thought, how am I going to look after our children without him?
Sebastião had been introduced to poaching by his brother, Eusebio. Eusebio has been on 4 successful poaching trips, killing 5 rhinos and earning him around $10,000. It's a tiny fraction of the end cost of a rhino horn, which can fetch over $250,000 when sold on the black market in Asia. But for Eusebio, it was worth the risk.
Up in the mountains, we wait and watch the movements of the rangers. When it gets dark, we know where to go and we're off. We walk for a long time until we get to an area where the rangers hardly ever go. Then we sleep. At first light, we wake up and start the hunt.
Poachers usually travel in groups of 3. One man shoots the rhino, one man cuts off the horn, and the third acts as a lookout Eusebio was the shooter.
We need to be some distance away and upwind of the rhino so that it doesn't catch our smell. The gunman advances close to the animal, but against the wind. He shoots it. Once the rhino is down, the other two join the killer, this time to cut off the horn. Then we go to the hideout and wait for the night because we can't walk during the day. When it's dark, we walk towards the border, cross over and get home.
Killing rhinos does not make Eusebio proud. And since his brother's death, he said he won't go poaching again. But for a young man trapped in rural poverty, he admits that poaching offers an escape.
No, it's not the right job, but there aren't any proper jobs here. What can you do? If you don't do something, you die of hunger. There is no work here. All we can do is sit around with our arms folded. If it were not for rhino poaching, we would just be dying of hunger here.
Until recently, poaching wasn't even a crime in Mozambique. Under international pressure, it is now illegal. But in an impoverished country, there's a reluctance to stop this lucrative trade. Jeremiah, still grieving for his son, believes the blame lies far beyond his village.
The police and soldiers bring the weapons here for us to go and do poaching. So the first step is for the government to stop the police and soldiers from bringing guns from Maputo. But if guns continue to come here, our children will continue to go poaching because they have nothing else to do. My son's death still upsets me greatly. That's why I continue to discourage the other children not to go poaching, but to stay where they are working, even if they get less money.
The rhino has walked the surface of the earth for millions of years, far longer than man. But in the past year, as well as record numbers of rhinos, 42 poachers have also been killed. Right now, rhinos are worth more dead than alive. Unless this changes, the carnage will continue.